Hello everyone and welcome back to the Classics of Philosophy. I'm your host Gabriel Turner, and as always, if you go on to enjoy the show and want to give your support, visit patron.podbean.com/classics of philosophy, or alternatively, visit our landing page at theclassicsofphilosophy.podbean.com. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. Now before we begin, I want to briefly describe the goal of Aristotle's inquiry in the categories. The categories developed by Aristotle are a linguistic analysis of the usage of everyday language. He thinks that in order to investigate those things of which we know little, we must start from a place that is more familiar, this being the linguistic framework that we operate in and use every day. In essence, this treatise is the foundation for the rest of the Aristotelian corpus. It is this analysis of subjects and predicates that leads him to develop what he considers to be an extensive and exhaustive list of 10 categories. These categories consist of the widest predicates and subjects, which can then be traced to individual instances of these predicates and subjects. Aristotle defines a relationship within each category intracategorically, as well as between each category intercategorically. With this said, in today's podcast, we're going to be covering chapters 1 through 5 of the categories. In chapter 1, Aristotle introduces us to equivocal, univocal, and derivative terms. He states that things are equivocally named when they have the name only in common, the definition corresponding with the name being different. What he means by this is that the essence of these equivocally named things are different. The example he provides is comparing a man and a portrait of a man. Both things can be referred to as animals, and yet, if you were to be asked to define what the animal in question is, it would be different in each case because their essence is different. Moving forward, Aristotle says that things are univocally named when not only they bear the same name, but the name means the same thing in each case. The example that Aristotle provides is the classification of both a man and an ox as animals. This use of animals is referring to two separate cases, but the essence of the statement is the same. For if you ask what is meant by their both of them being called animals, you give that particular name in both cases the same definition. Now of derivative terms, things are derivatively named that derive their own name from some other, that is given a new verbal form, as for instance grammarian from grammar, from heroism, hero, and so on. His objective in this chapter being to illuminate the relation of things in the same category and how they can vary in essence. It is at this point that we move on to chapter 2 and the analysis of expressions, and the determination of them either being simple or complex. Of these expressions, some are said of a subject, and some are present in a subject. Some are both, and some are neither. Aristotle realizes that through the combination of words, expressions, or phrases, we have propositions, while without combination, we have the uncombined form. These uncombined forms being words, while the combination of words being expressions or phrases. For example, man is an uncombined form. Man in combination with runs forms an expression. He goes on saying that of uncombined forms, you can predicate some of a subject, but they are never present in one. The example he gives is the usage of man. You can predicate man of a particular subject, but it is never found in that subject. This term in is not referring to the constituents of that thing, but that it cannot exist apart from the subject referred to. Man is never said to be found in a subject because its existence is not reliant upon any one individual. If an individual man were to die, man itself would not cease to exist. As a result, man is always said of the individual man. Now there is a class of things which can be found in a subject, although they cannot be said of any known subject whatsoever. The example given is that of a particular whiteness, which can be found in a body, but cannot be said of any known subject. In this chapter, Aristotle is defining what I refer to as the said of relation and the found in relation. This relation defining those things of the same category and those that aren't. Those things that are within the same category and of a higher set can be said of those within the lower set. This is because those of a higher set can exist apart from the individual, but are comprised of all the individuals. We will get a better understanding of this relation in chapter 3. Now, as far as what Aristotle asserts as it pertains to the found in relation, we will explore this later in the podcast. Moving on to those things which are both in a subject and said of one, knowledge is a prime example of this. For knowledge is found in a mind, but is also asserted of grammar. Finally, Aristotle says that there is a class of things which can neither be found in a subject nor yet be asserted of one. This class of things are individual instances, i.e., this man or that horse. Aristotle states that nothing of that kind is in or is ever affirmed of a subject. We cannot affirm things of a subject which are numerically one and distinct, the individual thing. This is a key piece in Aristotle's linguistic analysis. With this distinction made, it appears as the individual instance of a given category is unique in some way. We will go on to explore this idea further in more detail as we delve further in the book. In Chapter 3, we discuss predicates in more detail. If one predicates a predicate, that secondary predicate also holds true for the subject. To use the example provided by Aristotle, if we predicate man of a man, so of man do we predicate animal. Therefore, of this or that man we can predicate animal too. For an individual man is both an animal and a man. This is a classification of the individual thing by a broader classification, which in turn can be classified by an even broader classification. For we predicate the higher or larger of the smaller or subordinate class. The differentiable, then, of the predicate will also belong to the subject. This is furthering his concept of the said of relation that we touched on earlier, this being intra-categorical. With this said, of those where genera are of the same class or level, but different, differentia will differ in kind. The example Aristotle provides us with is the comparison of knowledge and animals. These classifications are of two different genera, and so that which we can describe animal, two-footed, winged, aquatic, etc., cannot be said to distinguish a particular species of knowledge. More simply, knowledge cannot be said of the two-footed animal, nor can the two-footed animal be said to be in knowledge. Chapter 4 opens the discussion of uncombined words or expressions, i.e., the 10 categories of linguistics. These categories, as presented by Aristotle, are substance, quantity, quality, relation, place, time, position, state, action, and affection. Aristotle then gives examples of each of these, although they are not restricted to these things. For substance, we have man. Quantity, we have length. Quality, white. Relation, half or double. Place, lyceum. Time, yesterday. Of attitude, posture, or position. State, is armed, is shod. Action, cuts or burns. And finally, is cut or is burnt, being an affection. Now, none of these uncombined words or expressions can either be true or false. There is no truth value associated with them. We should also note that Aristotle gives no reasoning as to why he believes these to be an exclusive list of 10 categories, but he does in fact believe that they are an exhaustive list that encompass all of language. In Chapter 5, Aristotle speaks of substance. He begins with the definition of substance. Substance, in the truest and strictest, the primary sense of that term, is that which is neither said of nor can be found in a subject. These substances that he's referring to are individuals, the particular man or horse, these types of substances being primary substances. From this, he refers to what he calls secondary substances, those within which, being species, the primary or first are included, and those within which, being genera, the species themselves are contained. This can be more easily understood if we make use of an example. Take, for example, the individual man Socrates. Socrates is a primary substance, with the secondary substance being man, and at an even higher class, animal. These species and genus are types of secondary substances. From this, we can conclude that we predicate the higher class of the primary substance as the subject. The primary substance is a subject of which the predicates are in reference to. Aristotle is implicitly referring to a hierarchical structure, with that of primary substances, the individuals, being of the utmost importance. He states that which is closer to these primary substances are better called substance, as they are nearer to primary substances. Moving forward, of those things which are present or found in a subject, we find that their names and definitions we cannot, at least in most cases, affirm or predicate of that subject. For instance, whiteness can be found in certain bodies, and yet, as we define it, we cannot predicate it of that particular subject, for they have their own specific whiteness, exactly that degree of whiteness. The point Aristotle is trying to drive home here is that the primary substances are the foundation of all things. This is because they underlie all other things, which in turn will be either their predicates or present in such as their subjects. Aristotle says that this is evident in particular instances. The example given is the predicate animal and man. We predicate animal of man, so we predicate animal also of any particular man. Were there no individual existing of whom this could be affirmed, it could not be affirmed of the species. Similarly with color. Color again is in body, so also in this or that body. For were there no bodies existing wherein it could also exist, it could not be in body at all. The main conclusion that we can draw from this specific passage is that if there were no primary substances, naught else could so much as exist. Aristotle is saying this because everything is always in reference to primary substances, either being said of them or in them. Of secondary substances, species or genus, Aristotle says that those that are nearer to primary substances are better called substance, and those more distal, less so. His example is that if someone were to ask what an individual man was, it would be more apt to describe him as a man rather than an animal. The primary substances are those that actually merit the name of substance, since again, they underlie all other things, which in turn will be either their predicates or present in them as their subjects. With this said, this reliance of species upon the individual, genus relies upon species. For animals to exist, there must first exist species of animals. Of those which are of the same class, the individual horse, horses, mankind, etc., none is said to be of more substance than another. Aristotle begins to close the chapter stating that substances never have contraries, nor do they have degrees. One can understand what he means by substances having no contraries, but what does he mean by them lacking in degrees? Aristotle is stating that at some point in time, an individual substance is not more or less a substance than he was at some time in the past. In the concluding passage, Aristotle states that these primary substances appear to have a distinguishing characteristic, to be capable of being the recipient of contrary qualifications. By this he means that at one time a primary substance is white, warm, or good, at another black, cold, or bad. He says that this is not so with anything else. In this, he's distinguishing substance from any other category. Now, I will be providing a diagram of this set of relation and the category of substance on the site. Next episode, we will be continuing our work in investigating the other categories. Thank you all for taking time to listen to the podcast, and as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me using my email, theclassicsofphilosophy@gmail.com, which can also be found on the homepage at theclassicsofphilosophy.podbean.com. Once again, thank you all for listening and joining my journey inquiring about life, customs, and think good and evil. I'll catch you on the next one.